안녕하세요. 저는 Nancy So Miller입니다. Hi, this is Nancy So Miller, children's book author and illustrator, practicing my Korean. I'm trying really hard. That's really for my Korean teacher to know that, hey, I'm trying. Well, I decided to have this little story time today. It's basically a vlog about where I am in the process of my children's book journey. So most of you guys may hopefully watch the video earlier on, and I'll link to it in the description box or maybe over here. So you can kind of hear like, how did I get an agent? How did the book, contract stuff happen? So now you kind of fast forward because some of those videos were made a while back ago, and then I finally posted it because it seemed kind of more relevant time-wise. So where I am now is I am less than 3 months away from my children's book being actually published by the lovely publisher Holiday House. So right now I just got in the mail. These are what they call folded and gathered. Okay, so folded and gathered, this is before it's actually bound into a book. So it's a lot thinner because you're right, and that's kind of thin. It looks like a paperback or something like that. So this has the book jacket. This is actually printed on the paper that the actual book is going to be printed on. And so I'm just so excited to see like it's beautiful. I love the paper. Shout out to the wonderful creative director, Carrie Martin. So she actually picked out the paper and all those, her design team worked on it and stuff. So it's just, I'm thrilled. I can't show all of it. I can show some of the things that they've posted. So here and also, yeah, this is the spread with the tiger. The colors turned out beautiful. I think as somebody who, makes things by hand, then shoots them digitally, and then I send those digital corrected files to the team at Holiday House, the design team, and then to make sure that they print the way I envision it printed the way I envisioned it. This is, like, what's kind of scary about this part of it, 'cause I was super nervous about the color, but they did a fabulous job. Also, in the package, I got a actual bound book, so I'm super, super excited. I was like I couldn't believe it. I was not expecting this to come with the package. I thought they would just be the folded and gathered. So I'm just so delighted. So now I can see how thick the book is. You can see the back side of it, and I'm holding my physical book. I did get a little bit emotional. I know it's kind of like been a long journey, and I think because I was the author and illustrator on this, where I think if I was the author only, I would have been able to take the time that it would have spent on the illustrations and just write more stories. And so, because I spent a year focused on getting these illustrations done, and I'm so glad I did. It's always looking back and saying, did I do the best that I could with the skill sets that I had at the time? And I think I did. And I really pushed myself to do better. And yeah, I'm just really pleased. So here's that same spread. Yay. Um, yeah, it's beautiful. I'm just so thrilled. And this is also a thing, if you like printed material, I like to I like to sniff my books because you can kinda smell that it's actually, yeah, printed ink and stuff, so this is beautiful. I'm so thrilled, and I can't wait for it to be, out there. So yeah, this is how crazy it was, I go to the bookstore and then I go like, "Okay, this is my last name. Let me go check. Where's that book gonna be? It's gonna be right there." And of course, one of my favorite authors, Pat Sitlow Miller, my book will be next to hers, and that's a huge honor. And yeah, I recently interviewed her on my podcast that I have called My Creative Life podcast, and I met her at a SCBWI, Society of Children's Book Writers and Illustrators Conference, in the Southern Breeze region. And so that is like the Georgia, parts of Florida, parts of Alabama, I believe parts of Mississippi. We're all kind of grouped together and we have these big conference regional. I mean, they're not as big. I mean, there's some others that are bigger, like the one in New York for SCBWI, But I tend to like these conferences because they tend to be a little bit more intimate and smaller, and you get to know people locally within your region a little bit better. So, yeah, so glad I decided to reach out to her after because I had that fangirl moment. I was just like, because of you and your video that you posted and you put this free contact, it really helped me write better because she's a very concise writer. And then being at the conference, her taste in children's books are amazing. I think one of the things that I've realized is as an adult, sometimes what you will think is a good book, and you're like, oh, that's a good book. And then I read it and I was like, and then books that I thought were not that good. And I was like, oh, now because I've been doing so many story times, I go like, oh, that's a good book. Like, originally, as an adult, I'd be like, not really." But then I read it again, with all the storytime experience, I started going like, "Oh, yeah, I can see where the audience gets to participate, when the story is read." So, yeah, I mean, it's really interesting. But, yeah, having a great sense of taste, being concise as a children's book, picture book writer. We have such a short or small word count. You gotta make every single word count, and, Pat does that, effortlessly. Also, she puts a lot of heart in her book, so I'm always love that, and positivity about, um, children themselves, who they are. So, yeah, I love her books. I've even donated a couple books to places that I've taught at before, and so, yeah, really love them. So, oh, another side project that also came into fruition that I wanted to share was, this calendar by Komerican Pie. Yay! Shout out to Sarah Choi, who is one of the, I believe, the founding member of it or co-founder of this. And she, well, actually, the creative director reached out to me on this project. And this is part of where the story time gets involved here because, yeah, I got to be included with all these amazing artists, and they are amazing. They are way above my pay grade, and it's just such a huge honor to be included with them. The cover illustration was done by Aram Kim. Aram Kim was the um, creative director, designer, and all of that with this project. And I was just kind of floored. I was really honored when she reached out to me and asked me to do January. So I made these giant gimbap, and I have some over here. Yeah, I have the ones that were in the photo or the illustration. So, yeah, so now you can see it without maybe it blurring a little bit right there. So, yeah, and the ironic thing is I think I sent her a promotional piece. And so for me, I love hands-on and because I'm building everything by hand and making it. I love to do like some special self-promotion like mailers. This is just me personally. I am a very tactile. I think it's all the years that I taught elementary art. I mean, I have the mind of a 5-year-old. I like things that are physical. Love things that, are interactive, pull apart. So I made this Kimbap book out of paper. It was probably about this size. And like we're talking about I say 3 or 4 years later, after I mailed this, she emailed me and reached out and said, "Hey, would you be interested in working on this project?" And I'm like, "One, as an illustrator, a creator, you just kind of floored because you're like, I made that and somebody actually liked it enough that they kept it for that long." Um, I'm just always shocked because I was like, not only her, but I'd heard back from like another editor I had sent one to, and they said they'd kept it for quite some time until their dog ate it. And it's like one of those funny little things. So I say this because, like I've said before, like at least children's book publishing and the way I work, which is kind of different in a way than way other people work. If I've found that most of my friends who are illustrators, they're just like, I just want to illustrate other people's works. There's nothing wrong with that. Um, as I was going along in my journey, I kept hearing, "Oh, we love your work, but it's just very different. The way you create, it's just so different." And I don't know that it was a bad different. It was just the way I took it is it's like, well, different means they remember me. I go like, "That's awesome. Somebody remembers me out of the sea of all these amazing creators, illustrators, author illustrators who are sending out work to be remembered in that sea of just amazing creativity is a blessing, and I'm grateful for that." So, the way I think through or how I like to create my work, it's just different. And so with that, I just keep making things that are different, and I try to like hopefully as I'm sending things out, um it resonates with the people who I'm my intended audience or the people who are looking to find, author and illustrators. I am kind of strange also in that I think because of my limited time frame in my life, I do have a full-time job. It's like a benefited, almost full-time job. I take that back. It's almost full-time. And so my time's limited. And I was like, I really love working on projects that I wrote the story and I illustrated. I think if the right story came along that somebody else has written and it's such a good marriage with what I do, it'd be amazing, because had that experience before, and it's great, but I definitely felt so vested in this because it's also very personal. Because I always tell people, but uh the characters are based on myself and my 2 younger sisters. So, of course, when I'm illustrating somebody else's story, it's probably not gonna have that deep level of the character's probably not gonna look at like me. So or whatever, it could be an animal, it could be an alien or whatever, but, yeah, so it's great to have a story that I went ahead and I worked on it from beginning to end. So super, super excited to this to happen. So, yeah, it's kind of weird the way I work. It's like I don't know always that I'm getting people to contact me for something that, yeah, to be honest, that's, probably 50%. So 50% of the work I do is stuff that I have actually, like, it's all me. It's like I'm writing the story, I'm illustrating it, or in this recent case, I'm having a wonderful experience, co-authoring something, and then I get to illustrate it. So, icing on the cake, a wonderful experience that I'm having with that story. And then I'm getting reached out for, to be honest, they're smaller projects, like the calendar, commissioned pieces, or maybe, yeah, that, or I'm pitching things like I was pitching like art licensing work. And so really actually the calendar I would think would fall more in art licensing. So I make things that I think a client might want, and they kind of have open calls and they say, well, we're looking for art that fits these kind of categories, and they're usually reproduced on products. It's a lot of fun to get those um, kind of gigs and see it turn your artwork turned into a physical product. You're like, "Oh, that's really cool. I can use this." I think that was one of the things that really drew me to that market because there was that practicality aspect of it. It was something that was physical at the end. I really love that there's that, like it's a rug. I can step on it and I can feel it and I can touch it. So that really, really always gets me excited. So, with that said, I'm not doing, I kind of decided because time is very limited, I'm just like, kind of stepping away a little bit from the art licensing stuff. I really got into making Korean handmade paper. I went to a workshop in California. A lot of it developed because of this. A lot of the research, so as illustrators, we're doing a lot of visual research about maybe a time period or place. And like, I wanted this to feel like it was in Korea, kind of like maybe like Joseon Dynasty time period. So it's like that was like a 400 or 500 year period. That's a long time, but it was like in like oh my memory is always bad, but it's like in the 1300s to the 1800-ish time span. So because I was doing visual research on that, I started really getting into the Korean arts and crafts, and I was just fascinated because because I was using Korean handmade paper hanji in some of the illustrations, I was like just, like, kinda blew me away. I was just like, "Oh, this stuff lasts a long time." There's, like, a saying in Korea, "Good hanji will last, like, 1,000 years." Um, and it's because they uncovered in this Buddhist like temple on Earth this manuscript, this Buddhist text that was wrapped in silk, and the silk was basically falling apart, but the Hanji was still intact of the scroll. And it's in a museum in it's one of the national museums in Korea. So when I saw that, I was just like, I am so intrigued by something that will last 1,000 years. And so I took a workshop in California. I met Stefru. She's an amazing um, Korean Hanji. Yeah, she's a paper maker. So she's based out of currently California, but maybe by who knows, she may go elsewhere by the time this video airs. But yeah, I was really fascinated, and I did the workshop. It was 2 days, and then I kind of went kind of bonkers, and I just bought everything I needed to make my own handmade paper. Um, because then it led me to another children's picture book story idea that is kinda just kind of marinating in there, and but I needed to learn how to make the paper. Also after that, because I was looking at a lot of, um, like, the tiger is inspired by Korean minhwa paintings, which are Korean folk paintings. They're, like, a little bit of Korean art history. Basically, back in the olden days, back in the ancestors' days, they had court painters, and you even hear this in like European. I had always been immersed in Western art and illustration, and it's really great to hear about this kind of art history. So they had court painters, just like you had court painters for kings and queens. They had their own court painters, and they made these beautiful paintings that were painted on hanji, and these were hung as, sometimes they were portraits of whoever was in power, but also it was symbolic. Like sometimes if you had a picture of some fish, like you'll see like in those Minwa paintings, like fish jumping out of water, that was like basically you're asking like maybe someone in your family is coming up for a big promotion, something special. So if you hang that, you are likely, you're um good vibes, we're asking for this positive thing to happen. You'll see a lot of peonies, which I love painting peonies. And so let me come back one second. I'm gonna go get one of my paintings. It makes more sense if I actually bring it. Hey, back again. So this makes it so easier when you have a visual. So I took a workshop from the artist who wrote this book. This is like really fascinating. This is like the only book that I could find that is an English, fully English guide to Korean minhwa painting. And this was written by Hae Rung Suk. She's an Atlanta minhwa artist, and she's like a master minhwa painter. She studied originally Western watercolor techniques, but then moving to the US, I think for anybody who's immigrated to another country, you just miss your home country. So a lot of times you'll hear like people who miss their country, they go back to kind of the arts. They need something to, kind of, it's just that longing, that missing. So she got into minhwa painting, and so years later, after creating so many beautiful paintings, she created this book and wrote it. And so it's all in English. And I got to take a workshop from her. She's super, super nice. Um, but yeah, her work is amazing. And so in the workshop that I attended, I learned how to paint some peonies. So like this is the one right here. So peonies are a symbol of like, like a lot of time if you hang this in your house, you will have wealth, you can have prosperity, hopefully a lot of maybe children, things like that. That would be, back then you'd want that. And you'd still want that today, for some people. So anyways, so yeah. So this was one of the ones that I painted. Um Really helpful because I learned how to stretch the paper, make the what they call agio, which is kind of a wait, basically it's animal glue. Sorry, but yeah, it's made out of animals. I learned how to make that, and you can get some that's pre-mixed, but then I after the workshop, I learned what the consistency was to actually make agio from yeah, from the animal skin pellets. So, yeah, it's pretty cool. But I really enjoy this. I want to do more of this kind of artwork. Yeah, I really like painting the peonies. Here's another one. I could paint peonies all day long. I don't know why, but it's just the way the technique is. It's just a lot of fun. So, yeah, I got a commission from a fellow artist. So I was so honored. He wanted me to do one for his mom, and it was very personal. It was so sweet. Anyways, so I got to do that, and that one, yeah, so super excited. Um, yeah, I want to do more of this, and so it's always like your time is very limited, at least in my case. I mean, it's like I don't know, maybe even if I didn't have a full-time job, I still have to, like, still, make time for my family, make time for friends or, you know, things like that, which help to not become so because there was a point where I was just so obsessed with just doing everything related to my art career and writing, and I literally hurt myself. I gotta get a pinched nerve. I'm like at that age where it's really not good to be sitting 24/7. So when I got into the paper making, taking the workshop for Steph and then doing the minwa painting, it's more physical. There's just more like because it's old school. Like if you're making paper, you're gonna be beating fibers. I mean, like, I don't know. I just got obsessed with it and I just love this idea of like, everything is basically me, and I would like get to the point where I have my husband I haven't told him this yet, but he's gonna learn how to make these boards. So if he learns how to make the boards, I will be able to make my own hanji. There's still limitations because it all depends on what size screen you have with your paper size. So I'm kind of at the size of 11 by 17, maybe a little bit bigger. Actually, it's a little bit bigger than that. Probably like 13 by 19 size, biggest sheet of paper that I can make physically here in house. And then, yeah, so those are all the goals that I have in the future. But it's also because of this story that has been like inside my brain that I just feel like it's it's for me, it's like sometimes it's the technique that I choose because I know that's gonna really fit the story so well. Like, I don't have to do the 3D work that I do love. I love doing it, but not every story is suited for that. Like, this story really fit, like, with that 3D medium and all of that. But, like, some of these other stories, I kinda looked at the stories that are right movie like, you're gonna have movies that are maybe styled one way or the other, and each one kinda stands on their own. I still feel like when I look at the work, it looks like I made it. There's something inherent about the way I think whether it's that mark making or the way I cut things, I think there's something that gets translated, like, I can still see, like, "Oh, that still fits in my portfolio." I don't know, it's kinda weird, but that's kind of the way I'm moving forward with my books, the way I'm kind of moving forward with my business. I just kinda was like life is short. I wanna be doing things that I really love and I enjoy and that I get a lot of I do feel like it shows in the work for me. I don't know. I just didn't want it to always feel like a grind. I always hear artists say, "Oh, it's supposed to be a grind. You're always gonna have" but even in the moments that I've worked on any projects and I've had another job and I didn't want it to feel like a grind because I felt like, well, if I'm not that excited to be working on this, it's kind of like I'm not gonna push myself to because there's nobody right here in it's just me and what's in here telling me to be like, "Oh, I can do this better, and then I'm gonna redo this, or I'm gonna try it this way, or I'm gonna do these things." If it's a grind, I felt like and there's been times in the past where I felt that with my illustration work, I just wanted to get it done. I was just like, it's like doing your laundry, and I never wanted this to feel like this is doing my laundry. This is not doing my laundry. It's something that I get a lot of joy out of. I want the end person interacting with the work because I guess also in another aspect, I always thought like, oh, well, I just made it and then I move on. But there's also whatever the intended person that interaction, though I might not be there for that, I want them to feel that I did the best that I could at that moment in time, that I was really vested in whatever I was making. And so I always have to remind myself, like, I was at first, like, when I was like, "Oh, I have a full-time job, and does it really make me an artist or not?" Or blah, blah, blah. I was like, like, "Oh, I'm such a loser." But it was just kinda, poor me kinda thing, um, moment. And I just was like, "You know what? The great thing about having a full-time job was it doesn't have to be a grind because I don't have to worry about this paying my bills, this being the thing that, at this moment of time and that I'm choosing in a professional way because and then you'll hear different opinions about this. I've had some people are like, "Well, then you're really not a professional." I get that. They feel like, "Well, then you don't have that pressure of paying your bills with your artwork." I said, I have done some of that before and I didn't really like how it made me feel. I was like, it was so stressful that I get a lot of enjoyment from. And it makes it a pleasure to do what I do in my day job. It really thought really hard about where can I utilize my skills that I've built up in the world of children's books, children's literature, and have it kind of be symbiotic with, the work that I do outside. And that was a good decision. And it's one of those things I left behind a much bigger paycheck because I was a full-time art teacher and I was like making the most money I'd ever made in my life. And then I was like, really having to take a step back and evaluate like, oh, okay, is this, what does it mean to be an art teacher? What does it mean? Because I'd been so vested in that for 13 plus years. If you've seen any of my videos, I always commonly say I'm an art teacher, and which I was for 13 plus years. But I still am an art teacher. It's just different. Now I'm an art teacher at the library, and I really love it. I love the little patrons that come in. They're absolutely adorable. Yeah, and I'm worried with the population of kids that I have not been as fully immersed in since my own child was that small, and it's the delight that they have, the joy that they get out of, and it's just like just jumping, and it's just like, "Jumping! This is fun, this is amazing." I think that just kind of makes me remember, like, the simplicity of being alive. And being able to physically move in space and do things is such a joy. And so I love that. I love that about what I get to do for my day job and that it also takes the pressure off of me about because I still hold a professional level of the quality of the work that I want to do. And so I'm still redoing it. Even though, it's like I'll redo it. I said, "Oh, I'll just redo that." And I think that's the hallmark of anybody who is professional, It's like you're gonna do this to the best level of your ability. And yeah. So that's what I've kind of tried to live by now. And it was really hard. I was like, I could not believe how much I had invested and tied my personal identity and what I do as an art teacher. And it was really tough kind of saying, well, I'm not what I consider the traditional sense of an art teacher. I'm kind of a traveling art teacher now. I don't really have a set classroom anymore. Even with where I am with my day job, I get to travel. And that was like really cool. I was like, the part about the traveling part, because I'd always been, from the education standpoint, like, oh, that's bad. Being a traveling, between places. It's a lot of what I do in terms of my business and what I'm doing with the things that I love in art. It's perspective. It is so much about this perspective where I want to be. And probably one of the guiding things I've kind of learned from is if this is not the place, that I feel that I am, that this is not right now, it's not a good fit, then I need to go and figure out where I need to be. And a lot of it has been this guiding rod of like, what do I love to do? Do I really care anymore at this point that, because people did kind of like, oh my gosh, you're leaving like a really good paying teaching job to go. And I was like, but it was like the best decision for me. And so like it's been this barometer of where do I need to be that really allows me to do the work that I love artistically, creatively, writing and illustrating, taking my Korean arts, all of that. And it has been helpful to have a family situation where, a little bit of pushback, but they were like, okay, we see that this, because the change for anybody is hard. Changing for your family, your friends, or those around, because we're used to this. We're used to consistency. And by far, in my experience as a teacher or just with, K through 12, people like things that that consistency, like we're used to getting this, that's what we're expecting. And so if you think that you're at that point where you're trying to maybe figuring out like kind of, I don't know, those people who like use the stick and they try to find water out in the desert and you're trying to like, okay. And for me, it's been yeah, where I wanna spend my time, where I get this sense of joy, and it is, yeah, and I've also been a lot less harsh on myself about, like I'd go to the points where I would just, like, spend massive amounts of hours, but it wasn't doing a lot for me, like, physical-wise, but it was also not the best thing for me, like, just mental health wise, because I get so obsessive, maybe a little too obsessive about what all of this is, and then where I was falling in terms of, like, I don't know, success or whatever. And I just really didn't like, yeah, I don't really like that feeling. Like, I didn't want that, what I create to just, yeah, for me, the two, I just was like, man, this is not where I wanna be, and so I do have to make time to spend time with my family and friends. It is so good to do those things because especially, it informs the art that I create, and so the writing especially, because yeah, because I think for me, my writing is about human observation, about people how they act, people how they react to things, and you're always kind of picking and thinking about moments in time. And if you don't have those experiences outside of just me and my studio, if I don't have those experiences, then I don't have that well to be able to draw from when I am creating. And so I kinda had to realize that because I was like, "Oh, I had to have all these other life experience that had nothing to do with art in order to be able to write and create the stories or make the things that I do." And so, yeah, that's kinda where I'm at. I might make some other content videos related to maybe marketing my children's books. I feel like it's kind of interest because for maybe people who are listening, just because maybe they're a little bit further along on their journey, or maybe they're even self-publishing a book and they have no idea about what to do with their marketing efforts and things like that. So, um, yeah, because what I create, especially the books, I really would like them to have. They're kind of like one of those things. Everything I do now, I kind of look at it as it's like a legacy, and so I kind of wanted to have a life cycle beyond just like just that one shot print of those books. I would love for them to be parts of, future generations' childhoods and get enjoyment from the story and things like that. So, yeah, those might be of interest, but you can always post in the comments, let me know if that's something you're interested in. I'm happy to share that. But yeah, I wish everybody the best in their creating and find some of that inner joy. I know it sounds so hokey, but I don't know, that for me, and like I said, that's just one perspective, and so that's kind of how I look at what I'm sharing, and I hope that you just take it as a takeaway. Use what you can and you think it's relevant. If it's not relevant for you, don't use it. And that's what I tell people whenever I critique a manuscript or give feedback. I'm like, you take what you can from this, or if you want, or you don't have to at all. Because, yeah, you make your own decisions on your career path and where you're going. And so many times, there have been times people told me one way versus the other, and I kind of was like, went with my gut and that was what I should have done. And that was good that I went with my gut. So I think, yeah, you you kind of know yourself the best. But anyways, I hope this video was helpful and I just wanted to share some of the great things that were happening. But I'll be honest, these great things were happening. It took like years. It's like it took years, and I'm okay with that. And I knew that this was gonna be a long journey, because a lot of the people that are wonderful author illustrators that I spoke to, writers, they kind of warned me, and I think that was really helpful because them sharing like, hey, this took some real time to get there, and so don't think that you're not, you know, that there's something wrong with you because it took you years and years or whatever to get there. So I go like, "Oh, good to know. Thank you so much." But anyways, happy writing, creating, whatever you do, and thanks for listening. Bye.